I go loony, making Kirblogs all week long. Simply loony. That is why I sang this song. It's Tuesday night, recording this ahead of time. And just got back from seeing Killing Joke with Mike and Steve. They went to bed, so I figured, I'll just, while my thoughts are fresh in my mind, I figured I'd just record this when I get back. So just me talking about it. So first of all, just going to preface, obviously going to be tapered with spoilers. So if you have not read the comic or have not seen the movie yourself yet, just so you're aware, would recommend checking it out for yourself if you like, because it is worth watching. And on that note, I am going to start off by talking about the stuff that I enjoyed about it. So first of all, I'll say this first. So I read the comic only once when I was in college. I believe I borrowed Mike Lucas's copy, and I read through it, and I really liked it. I thought it was very, very well done. I do not think that it is the second coming of Christ in terms of Batman comics, and I would say, like a lot of other people do, but I'm meeting a lot more people that are looking back on it and saying, like, it's good. It's not, the untouchable, godly, be all end all, greatest thing ever made, as a lot of people once revered it. I think it's cool that they did finally get to do an animated adaptation for it, especially because so many people were requesting that. And on that note, the adaptation of the comic itself, I felt was very, very well done. A lot of people were very down on the animation based on the trailers. The animation is way, way, way better than a lot of people were expecting, or rather were criticizing for it already before even seeing it. In fact, in particular, reference to the opening of this, the musical sequence in particular was very, very well done. Visual design, I felt like for an animated adaptation of, especially a very, very detailed particular style for this kind of comic, I felt like it was a pretty good translation of everything. The production of the whole thing, front to back, was very well done. It was up to par with, all the DC animated movies have generally been very, very well animated. Good use of color. Great music. In terms of voice performances, obviously, having Conroy and Hamill on Batman and Joker, and also Tara Strong for Batgirl, was awesome. Good supporting actors mixed in there as well. Overall, fun and up to snuff with the quality that you can expect from the DC direct-to-video movies and stuff. And like I said, the actual adaptation of the material from the comic itself, I think was very well done. That said, I say that in the future, because there's been a few of the DC movies that I've gone back and rewatched. I've watched Red Hood and Flashpoint Paradox and Justice League Doom a couple times, just of my own accord. I need to rewatch Crisis on Infinite Earths at some point because I haven't seen that in a while. I actually never finished that one. But anyway, that said, if I go back and watch this one, most likely I will start fairly deep into the movie when the actual material from the comic starts. Because, now to talk about the stuff that I didn't like, and, I'm sure if you guys have been following, a lot of the news outlets, or, in terms of relating to comic stuff and animation, you probably already know kind of where I'm going with this. Not a major fan of the new opening, 40 minutes worth of material. And I hate to say that because, when they first announced that they were going to be adding this whole extra stuff with Barbara and going more into her character and everything, I was excited. I was actually looking forward to that because I knew that Barbara, obviously was important. It's a Joker story with Batman secondarily, and, Barbara and Jim are plot points in the story. It is not a story about them, to be fair. Obviously they have horrific things happening to both of them, especially Barbara, more so, as it's implied. But I thought, either way, this will be interesting to have it start with, from her perspective and kind of see, what new stuff can kind of be added and they can go a little bit more in depth with some of the stuff leading up into where the material from the comic starts. yeah, I was excited about it, and I was kind of looking forward to how they were going to do it. And it's really disappointing because there were elements of what I think that they were trying to go for that really, really could have made it cool and interesting. And, I mean, look, I do not profess in this opinion, to be, anywhere near the level of experience as the people who, actually did this movie. And, I certainly, I feel like it's improper for me to be like, well, I would have done it this way or whatever. But there's definitely a lot of things I call into question, not the least of which, of course, I'll just, address the major elephant in the room. Well, actually, okay, I'll say this. Never in my life until within the past week, and I truly mean this, and maybe this will surprise people, I don't know, but I never, until I heard about the romance, quote unquote, between, Bruce and Barbara as Batman and Batgirl, irrespectively, reverse that. I've never heard of that ever being a thing at all until literally this past week when this controversy rose up with where they screened it at Comic-Con and, people were upset, and very understandably so. In all, again, because I've seen a pretty fair amount of the, Batman animated series, both, and Justice League and, The Batman and Brave and the Bold, etc., a lot of the movies. I have never in my life ever gotten the impression, I had no idea that romance between Bruce and Barbara was ever a thing. I had apparently even in the DC animated universe stuff, it has been implied to be a thing. Particularly, it was cited to me by a few people I was seeing on some of the articles and stuff about this, that in Batman Beyond, it was implied, between Barbara and Bruce at one point, but, very subtly and very, just like in like one episode or one scene or something. But even then, I didn't even catch that. I had no idea. My impression is that the relationship between Batman and, all of the Bat subordinates, the Robins included, of course, have always been, father and child type relationships. And it's weird to me because even in this whole sequence, in this whole opening, 45 minutes, however long it is, the way that Batman is acting towards Barbara was coming off to me still as like, you're like my kid and I'm protecting you. And because here's the thing, and I don't know, I know this is kind of a slippery slope to walk on. What I got away, the thing that I was getting away from this early kind of arc they were going for was that they're trying to show that, okay, Barbara is not the type of person who can go over the edge and teeter against the abyss and, and fight crime in the same way as this person who she admires, in that of Batman. She's not a person who is capable, and that doesn't, I personally don't read that as some kind of she's not capable of doing that because she's a woman. I think it's just as simple as people can't be Batman. Only Batman is Batman. And I think that the same thing would apply for Tim Drake or Dick Grayson, etc. I don't think that's exclusive to Barbara. I don't think that's exclusive to a character that is being female. So I don't interpret that as being objective towards the fact that it is a girl character. What I take issue with is the fact that laced in with what was coming off mainly like it was supposed to be a story about how I want to fight crime and I want to make a difference and I want to do this thing. Oh, but I'm not, this type of person. I realize that, because when she gets a taste of what that can be like, what being Batman can be like, and she's like, I don't like this and I don't want to do this. And he's like, I know, and that's why you shouldn't do this. And then they come to an agreement. I'm like, okay, that's an arc. That makes sense. I'm cool with that. That's fine. It's the fact that this romance is interspersed with it, and it's like I look at this and I'm like, this entire story could have been this opening story that was added, to lead into then this tragic thing that happens to Barbara, when the actual adaptation part starts. This story could have been told with the same end result of she decides, you know what, you're right. This isn't what I want to do. I'm probably not cut out for this. I don't feel good about this. I'm going to give this up. Thanks, thanks, and I'll see you later. That story could have been told without the romantic aspect completely. What I also kind of wish, because some of the other things I was hearing about was like the objectification of it. I don't think that Batman was objectifying Barbara at all in that story. In terms of like, like his like trying to urge her, like, don't buy into this. I don't want you to be on this case, etc. Obviously the douchebag, Paris, France or whatever, he was objectifying her, and that was the point, is because he was a douchebag. But at the same time, something that I also kind of, I don't know. I don't say this as like, I would have done this better if I did it. I say this as like, I wish that this was the case because this would have made more sense to me. Is I was confused, and maybe, maybe this is also because this is what I was expecting. I was expecting this opening, bit to be a case with the Joker involved. And it wasn't. And Joker doesn't show up until the comic adaptation part begins. And I don't know if maybe it was like they wanted to wait to have his like, introduction be, when it happens in the comic, and, therefore it's like, but, because it's mainly a Joker story. But at the same time, it's like, I feel like if Joker was at, the helm of whatever the case was that Batman and Barbara was on, the same basic, arc of what happened with her, I feel like could have played out without the romance, without, Paris, France, douchebag guy or whatever, and those people even being involved at all. It could have been something related to the Joker, and maybe, I don't know. Like, maybe that's partially what I was expecting. Maybe that's what I was hoping. Maybe that's what I would have wanted instead of this or whatever. And I guess I say that more so as a consumer and not as like, they should have done it this way or whatever. Because like, again, I'm not saying this on the pretense of like, I know what's best and I'm just as good as these people or whatever. It's just, it's confusing to me. It's confusing to me because for one thing, I just don't see Bruce and Barbara in that relationship and that kind of, deal. I don't get that. Apparently it's been a thing before. It was cited that apparently it was a thing in the Adam West show, which, I mean, that doesn't really mean anything to me. Apparently it's been implied in the DCAU before. I don't know. I was very surprised that was even a thing at all. I don't get it. And I don't know. I guess I was kind of hoping that the Joker would have been, involved with that opening bit, and it, this whole like weird romance thing wasn't an element of it, because it just seemed like, I don't know. The only part of the entire thing that I was really like groaning at, like really badly groaning at, was the sex scene, which is so funny because you think that that's that's the complete like, fan service, like, woo, yeah, bit or whatever. But it's like, I just like, this is so like, why? Like, and I actually even brought up there were a couple points that brought up. I was talking to the guys about this when we were finished. I brought up like, if it were, instead of them fucking on the spot, if it was, if it was she kisses him, like in the heat of the moment when they're having the fight, right? If she like kisses him and then he backs off and then he dashes off and then she still feels awkward about it or whatever, like, would that have been better? And it was like, yeah, it would have been less like, what the fuck than banging on the spot. But it still goes back to like, why did the romance have to be an element in that story at all? Why did it even? What was the purpose of that being in there? And further, there was a point brought up of like, maybe like, was it to like really push the R rating? I don't think that was the case, because I know that I believe it was Bruce Timm in an interview said that, we may be able to do this with a PG-13 rating. And, the rating, I know, like, isn't like up to the people making the movie necessarily. I know that that's a whole different, department that's handled, etc. And it didn't feel like an R-rated movie, because there were parts where characters were saying like, effing instead of fucking, or like, frickin' A instead of fucking A, and I'm just like, okay, whatever you say, guys. And that's super. I admit that's nitpicky on my part. I don't know, because that's the other thing too. Going back to the actual adaptation part of the comic, the dialogue is from a comic that was made in the 80s. And I know it's like, we can't change the dialogue. People would be very upset. Like, and the whole point is we're doing a straight up adaptation of that material. So if we change the dialogue, like, people would be upset, of course. Like, that's one of the situations, like, what the hell else are you supposed to do? Sure, dialogue's kind of antiquated. It's from the 80s. It is what it is. Sure. But, so it's like, okay, we can't change that. And it's like, all right. But some of the other bits of dialogue, I was just like, this is, it was very minor here and there, but overall, I was just like, people don't talk like that. What are you doing? I don't know. But that's also, I admit, that's very that's specific to kind of my own tastes and issues with stuff. But yeah, that whole, it really just bummed me out because it really could have strengthened it. It could have been a great lead in to then and then the comic book stuff starts. But really what it was is all right, it's over, whatever, and okay, now the comic books part's starting. Awesome, cool, and then I enjoyed it and I liked it. And you know what? And I'll say this, despite my gripes, I would still say, yeah, you know what? Check it out, because Killing Joke, while I agree that with a lot of people's perception lately is that no, it's not the second coming of Christ. It's not the greatest Batman story ever told in existence. And I think a lot more people, even people who might have been super starry-eyed by it are kind of realizing that. But it's still an interesting story. It's an interesting Joker story. It's a cool kind of dive into his psyche and kind of it's very much about the polar opposites kind of thing between between Batman and Joker's clashing mentalities and ideals on life. And not even it's super deep philosophical. It's no, but it's interesting. It's interesting. It's a story that's worth experiencing. If you haven't read the comic and you want to check out an animated version of it, I would still recommend it. For what it's worth, like I said, if I were to go back and watch it again, a few years from now, like I have with some of the other ones, I would probably skip the opening sequence with before the actual comic stuff starts. And that's a shame because, like I said, there was potential there. And it on the same note too. It's the general consensus from people. You can't really argue that it is. I know that right now the big controversy is what happened at Comic-Con with there was a guy who went up and asked the question and then kind of got into a problem between him and one of the staffers that was up on the panel and stuff, and that got a little heated. That's its own issue. But yeah, the general kind of consensus I'm getting from a lot of people that have seen it and expressing their thoughts about it is, because I wanted to make my own judgments, and that's why I still went to go see it myself, and I wanted to see it in theaters, and also I wanted to support at the very least a better, because I haven't even seen the other R-rated movie that's going to be in theaters. I haven't seen that yet. I have no intention of seeing that. And, I wanted to support this one because I'm sure it's probably better than that. I'm not going to name it. You know what I'm talking about. But either way. I wanted to go see it anyway. And so make your own judgments of it. Go check it out for yourself. It's a shame that, things turned out the way that it did. I'm curious, I guess, as to what's kind of going to come next. We were joking about, maybe, Long Halloween will be next. I'm glad I went to go see it anyway. I always want to make my own judgments on these things. I love the Batman characters. Joker's a great character. Batman and Batgirl are great characters, obviously, as well. This is more focused on Joker. Actually, what? I'll end on a positive note. Biggest highlight for me, actually, I really enjoy, even though obviously Hamill's always great as the Joker, I also really liked Hamill as Jack, or original non-Joker Joker, but like in the flashback sequences of the Red Hood stuff and everything. That was really cool. That was really cool just to hear him play the Joker before the Joker, because I never heard him really get to do that before in other stuff. I don't know if he has. I'm assuming at some point. But it was really cool. It was very well done. And then, the big lead up to, when he becomes the Joker was very cool. Really liked it. So, even for, I don't want to say the novelty of, but just getting to see animated versions of a lot of these famous sequences from, this really cool, piece of comic book history is neat. It's worth checking out, even if it's maybe just the one time, and et cetera. So, if you want to see it in theaters, I don't know if it's still going to be in theaters by the time that this is here, that this comes out, or if you saw it in theaters, I don't know, or, check it out whenever the Blu-ray hits, or I think it's on iTunes or something. I don't know. Check it out if you want, if you're interested. That's it. Those are my thoughts. So, I know. Sad. But that's about it. So thanks for listening. If you've seen it in the comments below, or if you've read the comic and you're curious about seeing it, let me know your thoughts. I'm curious. So leave a comment about that. If you have future Kirblog topics, let me know. And leave a comment about that, or hit me up on Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, etc. Thanks, and I'll catch you all later. Bye-bye.